Hi guys, my name is Nathan Flo Rocker. I'm a music producer, cinematographer, and photographer. Now, today I want to speak to you about Dehancer. Now, Dehancer is a film emulation plugin, or some would like to call it a software. What's film emulation really? Film emulation is sort of like taking what these old retro cameras used to look like and bringing that look onto your footage. Now, you notice that those cameras had a feel, they had a look to them. They captured the moment in a particular way. Now, when you hear film emulation, basically what it means is taking a film look and emulating it on your footage. Now, most of the cameras that we have today, mirrorless cameras, they shoot very clean. They are too tack sharp. So sometimes you want a feel, you want a look. It's almost like when you wear perfume, right? A perfume gives this impression about you, or it's like makeup. When a lady wears a makeup, right? It enhances how she looks. So basically that's what film emulation does. And in particular, that's what Dehancer does. Now, I've used a lot of third-party plugins to try and create a film emulation, but I never really got what I wanted. But then I used Dehancer, and it practically enhanced my footage. Now, I shot a short film using my Sony FX2 because I want to use it to actually show you the difference that Dehancer can bring to your footage. I'm going to show you guys the movie. So you see what it looks like when I edit normally, and then what it looks like when I use Dehancer. Then I'd also go into details of, how I was able to use Dehancer to enhance my footage. Now, before we jump into how I used Dehancer, there is something I need you to take note of, and that's the fact that before you use Dehancer, you need to know exactly the kind of look you're going for, right? So it's sort of like you have to plan, if possible, even plan your shoot. If possible, you can actually look at your Hollywood, your favorite Hollywood movies to see the kind of look you're going for. Then it's easier than to have done everything and then you get to Dehancer and then you're thinking, okay, what can I use or what can I not use? So it's usually good when you plan your shots very well. Now, here I have my short film, which I have shot. I'm actually going to leave a link in the description because the short films have like 7 minutes and I don't really want this review to be that long. So if you want to watch the full length film, I'll leave the link in the description and you can watch it. But I'm just going to play a portion of the short film. So just, you have a feel of what I've done using Dehancer.
Right.
See, forget that one. See more bets.
Yeah, no.
What kind of plane is? Why are you whining me, guy? See more bets.
I'm not ready to eat your money, guy.
I'll get there early, bro. See, forget eating my. Which money do you want to eat?
You get there early when you're already late.
Yeah, I don't go to any occasion. Okay, tell me what occasion I've ever gone to. Was I ever late for? What occasion was I ever late for?
This
Tell me.
particular one, bro.
wait, my guy. Let me call you back.
Okay.
Oh, but you just got back. When are you going back?
I should be going back in like 2. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there, right? So here I have, I'm using Adobe Premiere, by the way. So here I have my adjustment layer. Now let's open this up. So I have Lumetri, I have Magic Bullet, and then I have Dehancer Pro. Now, what I'm going to do now, what you're looking at right now is the finished product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to yank everything off so you see exactly how it looks. Now, this is what my flat movie looks like. Now, the DOP wanted us to overexpose just a little bit because we already knew what we were going to get off Dehancer. So we sort of like planned that, we had that at the back of our minds when we were going to shoot. So first thing you also need to do before you start is you need to color correct your shot before you start using Dehancer. If you just drop Dehancer on it, it's going to look horrible. So let me give you an example. I'm going to enable just a Dehancer. Now look at that shot. The shot just looks weird, very, very weird. It's overexposed, the highlights are blown out, and it just doesn't look good. So already I have, treated this a bit. So with Lumetri, I've toned down the exposure and I've made, the highlights and, the shadows and the midtones a bit sane. Now, I use Magic Bullet looks just for vignetting. I love the way their vignette works. Now, this is where the magic of Dehancer actually shows up. Now, I'm going to click it on and just see and I'm going to click it. I want you to see the difference it makes on this film. Just look at that. Massive. Now, let's go into the parameters one by one. Now, I have first here, input. Now, with the input, Dehancer gives you an option to define your source. Now, some people shoot using Rec 709 and some use other formats. So you have quite a number of formats here. But I think what I love the most is the fact that Dehancer gave you an option to choose the kind of camera you used to film, which I think is just brilliant. So I took that option. And because I shot using the Sony FX2, Dehancer doesn't have the FX2 right here because, I mean, it's a new camera. They'll probably have that in the updates. But here you have options for choosing quite a number of cameras, including mobile phones. So you have one for the Apple iPhone, you have for Arri Alexa, Blackmagic, Canon, DJI, Fujifilm, Leica, Nikon, Panasonic Red. I mean, they have tons of options. So this really saves you tons of stress because it's good that the software can actually tell, what's used to film. So it helps the film emulation process. So I use the cinema. Good. Now, with that, I actually did not use these other parameters. You have exposure, compression, you have temperature, compression, tint, defringe. I didn't need any of that, so I didn't use that. Now, the next is film. Now, this film portion here, this is the heart of Dehancer. This is where the magic starts to kick in. Now, they have quite a number of film profiles here, from Agfa to Fujifilm to Fuji Color to Kodak. The options are just endless. Now, the one I went for was the Agfa Color 100. Now, a point of note, underneath, what they have actually done is make sure that you define what you want. So there's this enable feature here. If you don't click on it, even when you choose a profile, it's not going to work. So have a look at this without, with. It's a subtle difference, but it does make a ton of difference. Now you have this push and pull here. Now when you slide this towards the push, it sort of like increases the contrast and it becomes more grainy. But if you push it up to 2.0, it makes it softer. I didn't use that because I already, I like the way the film looks. After that, we have film developer. So this is like the process of developing your film. Now, like I said, also, I have mine enabled. If you don't enable it, it's not going to work. So what I just did here was increase the contrast just a little bit, because in my flat profile, I didn't touch the contrast at all. So I just increased the contrast by 20, just by 20, maybe like 20%. You have options for the contrast, the gamma correction, color separation, and the color boost. I didn't need any of those. Now, the next is film compression. Now, with the film compression, like I said, I have it enabled. It does quite a number of things with the impact, the white point, the tonal range. So it sort of like deals with the dynamic range of your shot. I just added a few, touches here and there. I didn't want it too much. It's usually good when you just do a little, you don't push it too much. So it's enabled. After that, we have expand. This is another feature of Dehancer that I really love. Now, what the expand actually does, you have the black point and the white point. The black point sort of like deals with the shadows. So if you look at it as I'm pushing it left and right, it's getting darker and it's getting brighter. But I didn't want to touch that. The one I actually used was the white point. Now, the white point by default is at 100. Now, what I did was, because we didn't want attention on the highlights, I used the white point by dragging the slider all the way to 120 to soften how the whites look. So let me do that again. If I push it backwards, see how the whites are a bit prevalent here, right? Let me push this up by, say, 200%. Good. So now, if you have a look at the highlights, when I bring this down, see how it softens the highlights a bit? That's one of the reasons I love the expand. Now, the next feature, print. This is like the secondary, device here that it changes the look of your shot entirely. I really love this parameter right here. Now, you have profile, you have target white, you have exposure, you have tonal contrast, you have color density and saturation. But with the profiles here, they make a ton of difference. You have linear, see what it does? You have Cineon, Film Log, you have Fujifilm, you have the Kodak 23A3, and then you have the Kodak glossy paper. Now, the one I chose was the Kodak 23A3 because it sort of gives this Hollywood finish. I really love the way it looks. So I enabled that on, and then I dropped my target white just a little bit. I didn't want the whites, like I said, in your face. I didn't want them prevalent. And then I dropped the tonal contrast by like 5%. I didn't want it really in your face. The next parameter we have is the color head. Now, this deals with the cyan, magenta, and the yellows. Now, if you need to touch your cyan, your magenta, your yellows in your shots, this can work for you. As you can see, I didn't enable this because I don't need it. The next is film grain. This can make or break your film, to be honest. Now, let me push this to 200%. Now, I want you to have a look at her skin and this white fabric that has this leaf-like nature on what she's wearing. Now, I have the film grain enabled. There are tons of options here, but I realized that when you're using the 8mm to 50, can you see that? So it almost looks like she has a skin defect or thereabout, and that's because the film grain is very prevalent. It's in your face. If that's the kind of look you're going for, that could work. But for this kind of film, I didn't want to use that. You also have 16mm, it's still visible. Then you also have the 35mm. Gradually, it's reducing, but the one I used was the 65mm ISO 250 because it's more subtle. It's there, but it's not in your face. If what I was shooting was a very gritty movie, then I would say, maybe like an action movie or thereabout, then I could use, that amount of grain. Now, the next parameter is halation. This is another feature that I really love. You find this in a lot of blockbuster movies, right? Now, what's halation? It's basically, adding this red or orange glow to the highlights. Now, you need to be able to pay attention to detail to see exactly how it works. Now, I want you to focus on this portion of her dress, the white part, and her skin. Now, let me take it off. See that? Let me add it back. See? Let me take it off again. Let me add it back again. So it's very subtle, right? And you can also choose profiles likewise. So the higher you go, the more prevalent it is. And when I say the higher, I mean, if you go up to 8mm, Super 8, it sort of like makes it very prevalent in your face. See that? So it's really glowing. I don't want that. It's not a ghostly movie. So I came down to 65mm. I just wanted just a little bit of that. And then you have bloom. Now, what the bloom actually does is it sort of like adds this sort of like glowy tone to the highlights. Now, let me bring this forward just a little bit more. Good. Now, let's have a look at the white on the car, the white next to her, and the white on her dress. If I click on it, see how it just sort of like adds this glow to the white. Now, I'm not looking for that kind of feel on the film, on the short film, so I'm not using that. But likewise, you have a number of options here from 8mm all the way to 65. But this time I'm not using any one at all. So I didn't enable that. Under that, you have film damage. Now, what the film damage actually does is create this form of, it sort of like gives a feel of a form of like instability, but not really instability per se, but it sort of like adds all this grains and dust. It's sort of like when you're watching a VHS film, those sort of like dirt and little stuff that you see on the screen, like it's not clean. That's what that does. If I enable that, I'm going to see that in the film, but I don't need that in the film. Like I said, what I'm not using now may not work for this film, but might work for another film. Under that, you have film breadth. You have film breadth as another parameter. Now, what the film breadth actually does is it it takes your shot. It's sort of like, I don't know how to explain this. It's sort of like adds a feel likewise to it, sort of like still part of that VHS feel, but not so much in your face. The next parameter actually does that. Now, the next one is the gate weave. Now, with the gate weave, it's sort of like, adds this projector instability to your film. If I enable it now, I want you to watch the edges, right? It's going to zoom in slightly. See that? It's very slight, but it's noticeable. If that's what you're looking for, then, that could work, but I'm not using that. Then you have the overscan. Now, I find this pretty interesting, even though I didn't use it. Now, what the overscan does is it sort of like shows you the ends of your film, like the edges of your film. Now, if I enable this, see those things by the edge, this and this, that's actually coming from that. And you can define it from, super 8mm. Can you see that? So, you find some of these filters on Instagram. A lot of people use it to emulate film. You have standard, you have the Super 16. It changes based on your preferences, right? And then it has the shape of the gate. You can have it neat, you can have it normal, you can have it rounded, or you can actually switch it off. Then you have negative and positive. See? So you have the negative. Now, when you click on the positive, it turns white on the edges. So you understand what I'm saying when I say shows you like the edges of your film. Now, there are instances where this will work. For me, this isn't working, so I'm not using this. It also has film orientation, so you can use this for a vertical video or a horizontal video. So I'm going to remove that from enable. And then after that, we have vignette. Now, because I've used a vignette already, I don't need to use this. But it's good to know that, you have the option of using a vignette on your film. After that, we have monitor. Now, with the monitor, this is another feature of the Dehancer that I really love. It gives you that false color option, right? So now with the IRE, you can actually see which portions of your movie are, too bright or too dark. It also has the option of clipping indication. So if I click on that, it lets you see if your shot is clipping. Now, because we've edited the shot very well, it's not clipping. But it's good to know that there's a way to check if my shots are clipping, even whilst using the Dehancer. The next one is the output. This is very, 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 very important. Now, with the output, this defines how much effect the Dehancer has on your footage. Now, mine is at 80 because I really want the Dehancer doing a lot of work, but you have an option to reduce it. Now, if I reduce it, see how it changes? It's almost looking like the original shot, which is flat. You can push it down to a number that works for you. Of course, 100, it looks too much, but it depends on your shot. Let me take this back to 80. It depends on your shot and what you're looking for, but 80 works perfectly well for me. And then lastly, you also have the lock generator. This, I didn't expect to see this in Dehancer. And when I saw it, I practically just passed out, because what it does is it gives you the option to export, your look as a lookup table. And it gives you in two options. So you have for the small and normal. So you have the 17 by 17 by 17 and the normal, which is 33 by 33 by 33. I think it's just ingenious them placing that in there. And then finally, you have device. So basically, you have your license info. When you click on this, it lets you know if your license is activated or not. If it's not activated, you find a watermark. Then with the check profiles, with this, you actually get to update to the latest profiles that Dehancer has. So if they have added more profiles in there, it's usually good from time to time to check. Now, I just checked mine, and if there's anything new in there, it automatically gets into my shot. And that's basically everything about Dehancer. I think this is a game changer for cinematography. There are tons of options out there, but I just love what Dehancer has the capacity to do to any film. I can use this not just for movies. I actually use it now for practically everything I do. Every film set, sometimes even when I'm having a review, a product review, I actually use Dehancer now. I can't seem to do without it on everything that I shoot. So trust me when I tell you that these guys, they know what they're doing. They did a fantastic job, and I'm going to be using Dehancer for life, honestly speaking. So that's basically everything about my review of Dehancer Pro. If you do have any questions, please leave them in the comment section, and I'll be able to put you through on, how to make best use of the Dehancer Pro. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.